Welcome to the city planning review session. And we have as our guest Madam Secretary today, Hannah Marcus. So Madam Secretary.
Okay. Thank you,
Please
Mr.
begin.
Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the City Planning Commission review session. Today is Monday, May 23rd, 2016, and a quorum is present. The first item on the agenda for certification is a proposed zoning map and zoning text amendments in Community District 14 in the Rockaway Park neighborhood in Queens. And our presenter is Brendan Pillar of the Queens office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I cannot think of a better place to start today's review session than in the middle of Rockaway Peninsula. It is 75 degrees outside. The concessions on the boardwalk opened last Friday.
Enthusiastic introduction.
Beach formally opens for recreation on Friday, this coming Friday. And the 4.5 million beachgoers who came to the Rockaways last year primarily came to this area of the peninsula I'm showing in the black box. So the applicant, Rockaway Beach Hotel, LLC, seeks a zoning map amendment from R5B C13 to R6A C25 to facilitate the development of a 4-story, 33-room hotel with an accessory eating and drinking establishment in the Rockaway Park section of Queens Community District 14. The applicant also requests a zoning text amendment to designate the project area as a mandatory inclusionary housing designated area in Appendix F of the zoning resolution. As I mentioned, we're in the middle of Rockaway Peninsula. It's a very narrow section of the peninsula. Only two blocks really separate the bay from the Atlantic Ocean. And the project site is located on Rockaway Beach Boulevard, which is the primary east-west corridor on the Rockaway Peninsula. The project area, the rezoning area, encompasses the entirety of one block of the peninsula. And I'll describe the project site in a minute. But as you can see, the surrounding area is primarily developed with a range of land uses, everywhere from low-density 1 and 2 family homes ranging from 1 to 3 stories tall, to 12 and 13-story apartment buildings, to community facility uses. There are a number of schools to the west of the project site. And there are also manufacturing and industrial uses. To the north, there is a water pollution control plant and a vacant, large former industrial site just to the north of the project site. As I mentioned, the site is located on a primary east-west corridor and also a primary kind of north-south corridor that, while only 2 blocks long, will be significant because the citywide ferry service that's slated to begin in 2017 will have a stop at the on Jamaica Bay at the north end of Beach 106th Street, and it's just a short 2-block walk to the beach. The current zoning of the project site, as I mentioned before, is R5B C13. That zoning was actually established in 2008 as part of the Department of City Planning's Rockaway Neighborhoods rezoning. That rezoning encompassed over 280 blocks. We dubbed it the longest rezoning in city planning history, stretching nearly 8 miles. But as you can see, the range of land uses, we really used all of our zoning tools to reflect the range of land uses, everywhere from the single-story bungalows using the R3A district, to the more commercial character of Rockaway Beach Boulevard, where commercial overlays were established, and there were slight increases in density to promote new development along these major corridors and at areas near mass transit. I've mentioned the ferry before, but there is subway service at Beach 105th Street, and just off the map at Beach 116th Street. So as I mentioned, the rezoning area includes the entirety of Block 16180, but the development site includes 3 lots of that block, lots 1, 2, and 3. The block is bounded by Rockaway Beach Boulevard, Beach 108th Street, Beach 109th Street to the west, and Rockaway Beach Drive to the south. These series of photographs are taken kind of on a walk around the block. This is the top left picture is a view of the rezoning area that includes non-applicant controlled property at the corner of the site of the rezoning area along Beach 108th Street and Rockaway Beach Boulevard. This is a 2-story restaurant, Dalton Seaside Grill. The applicant's, the development site is outlined in red here and includes 3 lots. One is an undeveloped space. And the other two lots, lots 1 and 2, are developed with vacant 3-story buildings. Now, these buildings formerly operated as something called McNulty's Hotel and Bar. That establishment ceased in the 1980s. It then was converted into an SRO. But then following Hurricane Sandy, the buildings fell into disrepair and have not since been habited. So they've remained vacant since 2012. Here you can see the existing vacant buildings on the site. They don't front on Rockaway Beach Boulevard, they front on Rockaway Beach Drive. And Rockaway Beach Drive actually has commercial uses on the south side there. Some beach bars, restaurants, those types of establishments are on the south side of Rockaway Beach Drive. Now, the proposed development, as I mentioned, is a 33-room hotel that would be situated on the development site on those 3 lots that I mentioned. It would be 4 stories, 3 rooms in this L-shaped configuration, and inside of the L would be a courtyard with a swimming pool area. And here's a view of the development site, or an illustrative view of the hotel. Again, with the ground floor commercial use that the applicant feels is essential to the kind of business plan for this hotel. This is a very seasonal economy, but it's thought that with the ground floor commercial use, it could host events throughout the year to ensure that this is a viable commercial use year-round. As I mentioned, it's a 4-story building. There are approximately 11 hotel rooms on each floor, and a courtyard area that would be open to hotel guests. Now, to facilitate the proposed hotel development, the applicant requests an amendment to the zoning map. R5B C13 is the current zoning, as you can see on the left of the slide here. And the proposed R6A C25 zoning would allow the proposed hotel. Hotels are not permitted in C1, existing C1 commercial overlays, and they actually aren't permitted in C2 overlays, C21 through C24 overlays, unless that development site is located within 1,000 feet of an arterial highway. This site does not have that proximity, does not meet that proximity requirement, but the C25 commercial overlay does not have that. So again, this would be, the hotel would be allowed under this current zoning without that proximity requirement to the highway. As I mentioned as well, in addition to the zoning map change, because this rezoning would increase residential floor area from 1.35 to 3.6 with inclusionary housing, the applicant also proposes to establish a mandatory inclusionary housing designated area. This would actually be the first one in Community District 14 in Queens. And after consultation with the local council member, the applicant has selected option 2, the 80% at 130%, up to 30% at 80% option for this inclusionary housing area.
Thank you, Brendan. Questions for Brendan? Ms. Deluz.
Hi, Brendan. Could you just talk a little bit about the parking?
Sure.
And then also, what would be helpful to know maybe when this comes back is what the AMI is in the area now versus what is proposed for MIH?
I can tell you that now.
Okay, great.
So the parking, the interesting thing about the zoning changes, C25 commercial overlays do not require parking. But again, as part of the business plan for this development, the applicant feels that it is essential to provide off-street parking here. So there will be 26 off-street parking spaces that would be accessible from Rockaway Beach Boulevard. So not only are they going to provide parking because they feel there's a need to make this a successful development, but it actually would be located in the cellar of the building because this project is located in the flood zone, and the only things that are allowed below the flood-resistant construction elevation are parking access and storage. So they're actually using that space that would be available to them because of the flood code in the city's building code to provide that off-street parking. So 26 off-street parking spaces would be provided with this development. The local area median income is $77,000, which is approximately 100% of area median income for New York City.
No, AMI right now is about $90,000.
For a family of 3.
Right.
For a family of 3, it's $77,700. So for that level, it's where the help factor in where the 30% at 80% decision came in.
Mr. Cantor?
I'm confused about something. This is a hotel.
Yes.
Where does the affordable housing come in?
Well, there is no affordable housing development proposed, but because the rezoning itself would increase residential floor area significantly enough, the applicant will also be requesting a mandatory inclusionary housing designated area so that if residential
But it
development.
doesn't affect this site.
It doesn't affect the site under the proposed rezoning, but if a residential development were to happen either on the development site or on the adjacent property, which is also proposed to be rezoned, it would be required to provide mandatory inclusionary housing. So it's the
basic question is-
type of development that would trigger that.
Just to be clear, so what is being proposed here is a rezoning with an expectation at the moment that this will be a hotel.
That's right.
But if after approval, the applicant decided to, instead of doing a hotel, do residential development, which would certainly be within its rights, under those circumstances, MIH would apply. So when we do the rezoning recognizes that there are a variety of uses that could actually emerge here, even though this is fairly clear at the moment this is going to be a hotel. At least that's what's
If
anticipated.
it's going to be a hotel, what's in this for the city?
What's in it for the city?
Yeah.
It's it's a private application, and the idea is, I guess, that this particular developer believes, and we'll soon see what the community believes, that this hotel would be a desirable use in an area where visitors do come and which enhances our local economy.
Which redounds to his benefit.
What?
Which redounds to his benefit.
To the developers?
Yeah.
Sure, but also potentially to the city as economic development and jobs are created.
Okay.
Mr. Dweck?
Speaking
Let me just say, I'm not, at the moment, what we're doing is simply certifying the application is complete as opposed to embracing it. We'll soon see what the community says and what the borough president says and the like, but at least the notion of a hotel and the possibility that if they decide, should this project or the rezoning be approved, that the developer decided to switch to residential, in such an instance, MIH would apply. Mr. Dweck?
Going to the industrial site,
Yeah.
fronting Jamaica Bay, what do we know about it, and how does this rezoning or potential rezoning affect the future use of that site? Do you see that coming back for a rezoning on its own?
It's hard to say. I mean, it's a 9-acre site that's owned by National Grid, and before that, it was owned by the Long Island, it's currently owned by the Long Island Power Authority, formerly the National Grid. It used to manufacture natural gas on the site. So actually what you see here is the tail end of a lengthy remediation process that's been going on the site to actually clean up that history, that industrial legacy on the site. There are no development plans for the site as of now, but the city has worked with the utility company to provide parking for the ferry service that we'll be running here in 2017. This picture was actually taken while the temporary ferry service was operating post-Sandy, when the A train and S trains were knocked out of service. And that same arrangement was happened at that time. And it's the city's expectation that when this citywide service comes online, that parking would also be provided on this large vacant and formerly industrial site.
On the entire site parking, or?
Probably just in this section, because that could more than meet the off-street parking needs for ferry riders in the area.
We're not anticipating a return to a manufacturing or industrial usage.
The existing zoning certainly wouldn't preclude that, but I don't anticipate it here. Any new developments, particularly industrial, this close to Jamaica Bay and at this flood elevation would be a real challenge.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, Not even a question from Mr. Cirillo? Certified.
All right. Brendan also will present the next item, item number 2 on page 65, a proposed special permit to allow a use group 12 eating and drinking establishment with dancing in the cellar of a landmark building at 86-13 Lefferts Boulevard. Item number 2, page 65.
So I have to move you away from the beach for a little while, but we are still going to be focusing on a historic gathering space and a space that the applicant would continue to like hosting events at. This application by Siberian Ice LLC seeks a special permit pursuant to the zoning resolution section 74-711 to modify the use regulations in a commercial district to allow for the cellar of the landmark of a landmark building to be an eating and drinking establishment with dancing. Eating and drinking establishments with dancing are not permitted as of right within existing C41/C24 zoning. And the project site is located in the Richmond Hill section of Queens, which is really in the middle of the borough. The subject building, known as the Richmond Hill Republican Club, was designated as a landmark by LPC in December 2002. And according to the LPC report, the Richmond Hill Republican Club was built in 1908 and served as a social gathering place and entertainment space for local community functions and stands as an excellent example of small-scale colonial revival civic architecture. Presidents Roosevelt, Reagan, and Nixon all had campaign stops throughout this building's heyday. But
I assume the first President Roosevelt.
the first President Roosevelt, correct? And as far as I know, there's been no campaign stops by Donald Trump.
Still time.
His father did grow up in adjacent Woodhaven, Queens, so maybe there's a stop in the future. But the building largely through the mid-'80s was vacant until the applicant acquired the site in 2007. And since the applicant's acquisition of the building, the applicant has been performing restoration and structural work on the building in compliance with LPC guidelines. Just like the Rockaway site, this site was also affected by a department-initiated rezoning. So the current C41, C24 zoning was established in 2005 as part of the Kew Gardens Richmond Hill rezoning, and that really had the residential component of that had the effect of reflecting the existing kind of residential developments in the area. The change in commercial overlay really just adjusted the parking rate. So the project site here is outlined in red, and it is also located on some main corridors in central Queens. The site is located on Lefferts Boulevard, which is the main north-south corridor, and less than a block away from Jamaica Avenue, which is a major east-west corridor. And as you can see in this aerial image here, the land uses in the vicinity of the project site really vary. You have low-density 1- and 2-family homes to the east of the project site and to the south of the project site. You have mid-rise apartment buildings to the north, as well as low-density residential to the west of the project site. But it is also an area that has commercial character today. Lefferts Boulevard south of Hillside Avenue here through Jamaica Avenue is a commercial corridor. And Jamaica Avenue is also a major commercial corridor. And that corridor is primarily developed with buildings that have ground floor commercial uses and residences above. If we move on to the zoning and land use map, we can see that the kind of mix of land uses is also reflected by the zoning in the area. I will note that there's also some manufacturing zoning in the area that is largely developed with warehouse type uses and some self-storage facilities, in addition to the commercial character that I noted on Lefferts Boulevard and Jamaica Avenue. So again, taking a bit of a stroll down Lefferts Boulevard, working our way from north to south. Hillside Avenue is just at the top of the picture here. We have a recent commercial development that was built, that was completed in 2014, just to the north of the project site. Here we have the Richmond Hill Republican Club, which is on the east side of Lefferts Boulevard. Just to the south of the project site, there are residentially developed properties. This blue house that's hidden behind this full tree there, and this building here, both contain 4 residential units before the commercial character of the corridor picks up again south of that second residential building as you move towards Jamaica Avenue. And as you can see in the background here, this area does have transit access with the MTA's J and Z lines, which run on an elevated track above Jamaica Avenue. Now, as I mentioned, the applicant acquired the project area in 2007, and in 2013 established an as-of-right banquet hall on the first floor of the Richmond Hill Republican Club. As I mentioned, that use has been in operation and is as of right. The banquet hall is event-specific and only operates on Saturday evenings until 3 a.m. today. And there are approximately 21 restaurant workers and approximately 75 to 130 patrons every Saturday evening in the banquet hall on the first floor of the building. What the applicant would like to do is establish an eating and drinking establishment in the cellar of the building to complement the existing banquet hall facility. The cellar has approximately 7,000 square feet of floor area and will have its own kind of accessory space for food preparation and storage. The proposed cellar use will operate every day of the week with the exception of Fridays when it would be closed for religious observances. When the proposed use is in operation, it is expected that an additional 20 employees would work in the eating and drinking establishment with dancing, and up to 200 patrons on Saturday nights would come to the, are expected to the use operating until 3 a.m. Now, to facilitate the proposed conversion of the cellar of the landmark building into an eating and drinking establishment with dancing, the applicant is requesting a special permit pursuant to zoning resolution section 74-711. As I mentioned, this proposed use is not allowed as of right by zoning today, but it could allow for the eating and drinking establishment, which is a use group 12 use, in the cellar of the building. Now, in all districts, the City Planning Commission may permit use modifications, provided that the Landmark Preservation Commission issues a report stating that a program has been established for the continued maintenance and that it will result in the preservation of the landmark building. So the applicant's discussion of conditions and the report from the Landmark Preservation Commission are in your commission packages. In addition to the conditions, in order to grant a special permit for use modifications, the City Planning Commission must also find that the use modifications will have minimal adverse effects on the conforming uses within the building and in the surrounding area. The applicant has also attached I've also attached the applicant's discussion of findings to your commission packages. But in it, the applicant maintains that the proposed use would not impair the conforming uses within the building and in the surrounding area because the use is consistent with the commercial character along Lefferts Boulevard and Jamaica Avenue. And it would be designed to minimize noise with full sound attenuating partitions installed throughout the perimeter of the space, sound attenuating ceiling panels, self-closing doors that would remain shut during hours of operation, and masonry walls that will ensure that the sound level does not exceed the limits set forth in New York City's noise control code. In addition, though no accessory off-street parking is required, the applicant will provide valet parking at an off-site location to minimize the proposed use's effect on the availability of on-street parking in the surrounding area. And as I mentioned, both the discussion of findings and conditions are attached to the packages.
Thank you, Brendan. Questions? Ms. Levin.
Thank you, Brendan. I have to say, the online images of the catering accommodations at this place are really splendid. But it makes me wonder, they must have had some wonderful parties there. So I'm curious about two sort of quality of life aspects of this application. Whether we're essentially more than doubling the capacity of the current operation, what changes that will require in the HVAC systems, which are on the roof that backs up to the residential on the other side of the block. So what effect that might have on those residential buildings. And secondly, I think given the nature of the current operation, it would probably be good due diligence for us to find out about 311 calls or other check with the local police precinct to see what kind of track record these operators have as a good neighbor. I'm sure the community board will have something to say about it if it's problematic, but I'd like to do our own research to find
I
that
can
out.
say that the HVAC system is new and had been set up in compliance with LPC guidelines, so it is a new system. We can confirm with the applicant that it would be able to accommodate the use in the cellar and not impair the quality of life on surrounding properties. I have checked 311, and I have not been able to find any noise-related complaints about the existing banquet hall use that has been in operation since 2013. But definitely double-check that, and we too are interested in what the community has.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Efron, then Mr. Cirillo.
Thanks. I share Commissioner Levin's concern, or at least acknowledgement, that it's really going to become a 14,000 square foot, 6-day-a-week evening facility, which seems to accommodate 400 people, not 200, right?
So I gave the expected customers per use, so it would be up to 400 people, 200 in each use.
So additional questions, and I hadn't thought about the HVAC, which is a really significant one for the neighbors behind, but I was concerned that the egress from the basement, it would be interesting to see where in fact that egress is and whether it affects the people behind them, either with an alleyway or otherwise.
Sure, I can show you that.
Okay, and then my other question is whether, since presumably they cannot smoke inside the building, if there's any accommodation for outside smokers. Thanks.
So the primary, to answer your one question, the primary entrance into the building is through this kind of semicircular set of stairs that would then take you either into the as-of-right banquet hall use or to stairs that would take you down to the proposed eating and drinking establishment with dancing. There would also be separate entrances to that use via stairs to the south, or I'm sorry, to the north of the main entrance, or elevator to the south of the main entrance. There's also emergency fire access that happens at the side of the property that's not built right up to the property line.
So in the cases where there are new exterior, whether they're emergency or actually primary means of egress, it would be interesting to know what the sound plans are for those spaces, which particularly the front ones will be open throughout the course of an evening.
Mr. Cirillo.
I guess this is one of those sort of connected dots questions. So obviously, with the approval of the special permit, there will then be the opportunity to have this use in the space. But the legality of the use would then come from a license from the Department of Consumer Affairs to operate as a cabaret. Would that be right? This wouldn't alone permit the operation of a party upon the approval of a special permit. The cabaret license would do that. This just creates sort of the underlying authority, so the C of O would provide the necessary information.
Yeah, I can speak to the zoning resolution, that's what I know best. So the use is not permitted today, it would simply open up the opportunity for the use to be located in the south of the building, pending other approvals for that use.
Okay, right, because then the issues about, look, I don't want to be the one who destroys the Republicans having a good party, but at the same time,
Hardly.
there are
Be open to everybody.
there are obviously, given the proximity to residential and neighborhood issues, the community board will obviously get to weigh in not only on this application, but also on any application that came to it for the license.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I believe that was a rhetorical question from Mr. Cirillo.
But sometimes when we deal with the applications, but there's always, even parking garages and things like that, there's always another layer that follows. But I just wanted to make sure, in this case, that this wasn't doing anything greater than the typical licensing process
Don't they
would
have
provide
liquor
as well.
license already?
Okay.
They have a liquor license.
Thank you.
Well, I mean, Ms. Efron asked the question sort of sotto voce here, whether they have a liquor license for their banquet hall. And I assume, although they may need a separate liquor license, I turn to the expert over here, they need a separate liquor license for,
If the
the
venue has a
tavern.
liquor license, that would be sufficient.
Right,
I
that's
mean,
what
if
I thought,
someone
too.
came in to rent the place out, I mean, you have different, they may have to enter into a different sort of agreement. I mean, sometimes these places, the party is theirs, and sometimes, and let's face it, for an all-year-round operation, again, this is speculation on my part, but this would be rented out to families, community groups, whatever, to have parties in. I'm sure in a nonpartisan fashion, however it makes money. But and in some cases, it may be an organization that does not have a liquor license, so it's, and they would, through the catering hall license for the specific purpose, there would be liquor. I mean, the question is, and not to get into this, but how they're operating, if there's events like that going on now, how that's occurring. But in the future, clearly, there would be a more administrative process for these kinds of things to occur.
well, they could, obviously, if they just wanted to, expand the banquet hall to accommodate 400 people without even coming to us. I mean,
So long as there was not music.
as long
happening.
as there was not music, or perhaps the Republican Party could only fit 200 people, or
Correct, without instruments.
attract 200 people.
It has been known
but-
to be the case.
In Richmond Hill. Anyway.
But yes, it's the combination of the food and the music
Right.
that triggers another license. But again, it also triggers the zoning, the ability under zoning to do
Right.
that.
But we run better hearings.
Yes,
If the community has a beef, they better bring it here.
without music.
Okay, any other questions, Brendan, who has patiently
Patience,
awaited
listen
our
to us.
banter back and forth? If not, this is certified. Thank you, Brendan.
The next items are number 3 and 4, page 132. Both items are for certification. These are related zoning map amendments for 2 non-contiguous properties fronting Seegert Boulevard in the Far Rockaway area of Queens Community District 14. The first site is located at Beach 13th Street, and the second is located at Burnside Place. Our presenter is Scott Solomon from the Queens office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Chairman Weiss-Broad. The applicant, Gleitman Realty Associates, seeks approval of a zoning map amendment for tax block 15620, lots 1 and 11, by establishing a C13 commercial overlay on an existing R5 district to facilitate the construction of a one-story commercial building. Development facilitated by the proposed action would total 6,394 gross square feet of commercial floor area and 16 accessory parking spaces. The project area is coterminous with the development site located along Seegert Boulevard in the Far Rockaway neighborhood in Queens Community District 14. The development site is located less than a half-mile west of the Nassau County border. Immediately south of the site is the Rockaway Beach and the recently renovated boardwalk and parks. There are recently, just before Hurricane Sandy hit, they renovated with brand-new handball courts, basketball courts, a skate park, a Donahue Park, which is a little ball field over here with a large open lawn. Seegert Boulevard is a wide, major east-west street that services the surrounding area, providing vehicular access between Rockaway Expressway, which is out of the map to the west, and Nassau Expressway, just over here on the Nassau County boundary. Here we have a zoning section map. The surrounding area is currently zoned with a mix of R4, R4A, R5, and R6 districts. In 2008, the city approved zoning changes as part of the Rockaway rezoning in order to protect the character and scale of the neighborhood. The rezoning also sought to provide modern retail opportunities to spur reinvestment. This site has remained unchanged as a result of the rezoning. The development site, held by the applicant since 1989, has been vacant since 1955, when 2 residential properties were demolished on the parcel to accommodate the widening of the audio-oriented Seegert Boulevard. The development site occupies the entirety of the irregular shaped 17,373 square foot lot. The site has 296 feet fronting along Hasten Road to the north, 326 feet along Seaguard Boulevard to the south, and 107 feet along Beach 13th Street to the west. Presently zoned R5, current zoning rules permit a maximum maximum floor area of 21,716 square feet, utilizing the 1.25 maximum residential FAR. Community facility uses at 2.0 would allow up to 34,000 square feet of use. Here we have a few photos of around the development site. Starting in photo 1 on the top left here, looking east from Beach 13th Street towards the western edge of the site. Photo 2 is looking southwest from Hasten Road. Photo 3 is looking south on the southern border across the site towards Seaguard Boulevard. And photo 4 on the bottom right is looking west from Hasten Street and onto the residential dwellings across the street on Beach 13th Street. In terms of the proposed project, on the development site, the applicant proposes to amend the zoning map to facilitate the development of a one-story commercial building containing approximately 6,394 square feet of floor area and off-street parking for 16 vehicles. The proposed built FAR would be 0.37. The remainder of the site would be landscaped. This is a rendering of the massing of the property with Seaguard Boulevard in the foreground and the parking followed by the landscaping. The design and construction, this is a rendering or drawing of the elevation plan. The design and construction of the proposed development would comply with New York City Building Code requirements for construction within the 100-year floodplain, as well as the flood resilient zoning text amendment requirements. The finished floor elevations will be one floor above the base flood elevation and flood-proof to the design flood elevation. All utilities will be designed to prevent loss due to flooding and erosion with mechanical and mechanical equipment located on the roof of the building. In terms of the requested actions, in order to facilitate the proposed development, the applicant proposes a zoning map amendment to establish a C13 commercial district overlay within the existing R5 district to include the entirety of the development site. In a C13 overlay, the maximum commercial FAR is 1.0, and one parking space is required for every 400 square feet of general retail use. It would allow for general retail and other personal service establishments. Per the applicant, the proposed amendments is consistent with the city-sponsored 2008 rezoning by providing local commercial uses in locations that are currently underserved by retail services and spur reinvestment in strengthening the existing neighborhood. Per the applicant, the site is an appropriate location for commercial uses due to its location along a wide boulevard that already serves local traffic and would support various commercial uses. And that concludes the presentation for the Beach 13th Street site.
Yes, why don't you do the
Cool. Sure.
second one, and we'll discuss them both together.
Again, the applicant, Gleitman Realty Associates, same applicant, is now proposing a rezoning on tax block 15784, tax block 1, by extending an already adjacent R5 district from the east onto an existing R41 district and establishing a C13 commercial overlay to facilitate the construction of a 5-story residential building and a 1-story commercial building. The development facilitated by the proposed action would total 31,850 gross square feet residential floor area, 5,629 gross square feet of commercial floor area, and 43 accessory parking spaces. We move approximately a half mile west of the previous development site. Also coterminous with the development site is the project area. Just east of the Rockaway Expressway, it's approximately one block north of the existing Rockaway Beach and improved boardwalk. The same zoning section map now highlighting the other project area. Surrounding area is currently zoned with a mix of R3, R41, R4A, and R5 and R6 districts. The site was rezoned from R5 to R41 during the 2008 Rockaway rezoning. The development site has been vacant since 1983 after a 3-story structure was demolished and has remained vacant since then. It entires the entirety of the irregular shaped 30,216 square foot lot. The site has 169 feet fronting Watching Court to the north, 153 feet along Fernside Place to the east here, and 170 feet located south on Seagirt Boulevard. The remainder of the tax block outside the proposed rezoning area over here is currently improved with two-story detached 1- and 2-family residences fronting upon Highland Court and Watching Court. Presently, R41 districts currently zone would allow 27,194 square feet of floor area, utilizing the 0.9 residential FAR. Community facility uses at 2.0 FAR would allow up to approximately 60,000 square feet. Here we have photos of the site and surrounding area. On photo 1, the top left, we're looking west from the development site with the existing residential buildings in the background. Photo 2, we are looking southeast from the southern portion of the development site. Photo 3 in the bottom left, we're looking northeast towards the development site from Seagirt Boulevard and Fernside Place. And the last photo in the bottom right is from, facing south from the proposed development site across Seagirt Boulevard, where there's an existing C13 commercial overlay. You may notice a laundromat that is currently in use. Moving on to the proposed project. The applicant is proposing a zoning map amendment to facilitate development of a 5-story residential building again, and a separate 1-story commercial building. You will see the residential property to the north and the commercial property to the south. The residential building would front Watching Court to the north, and the commercial property would be facing towards Seagirt Boulevard. The residential building would contain approximately 31,000 gross square feet floor area across 27 dwelling units, and would have off-street accessory parking for 29 vehicles. The commercial building would contain approximately 5,629 square feet of floor area and off-street parking for approximately 13 vehicles. The proposed development, residential FAR would go to a total of 0.99, and commercial FAR to a total of 0.18, totaling 1.17 FAR for the entire development. The remainder of the site would be landscaped, screened, buffered from the existing residential uses located to the west. Here we have a rendering of the massing of the property with the residential building here. You will see it rise above columns with parking underneath, rising to a maximum 30 feet set back, and then rising to a maximum 40 feet for the 5 stories. The residential units would be located in floors 2 through 5. The commercial property is over here with separated parking for both the commercial use and the residential use. The design and construction of the proposed development would comply with New York City building code requirements for the 500-year floodplain, as well as the flood resilient zoning text amendments as well. The finished floor elevations would be up at the finished floor elevations for the residences would be at 8.75 feet above the base flood elevation, and would be approximately 9.75 above, it would be 8.75 feet above the design flood elevation and 9.75 above the base flood elevation. The first floor elevations of both the commercial and the lobby of the residential building would be at the design flood elevation. All utilities would be designed to prevent loss to flood and erosion as the other building, and would have all mechanical equipment, again, located on the roof of both buildings. In terms of the requested action, here we are proposing to facilitate, in order to facilitate the development, we would, they are proposing to a zoning map amendment to extend an adjacent R5 residential district located over here, just east of Fernside Place, and then establishing a C13 commercial overlay. The proposed R5 district has a maximum FAR of 1.25, a maximum building height of 40 feet, a maximum perimeter wall height of 35 feet, and must provide off-street parking for at least 85% of dwelling units. In the proposed C13 overlay, the maximum commercial FAR is 1.0, and 1 parking space is required per 400 square feet of commercial use. It would allow, as well as the other site, general retail and personal service establishments. In R5 districts, community facility uses would be up to 2.0 FAR. Similar to the Beach 13th Street site, the proposed amendments to the zoning map is consistent with the 2008 rezoning, which sought to incentivize moderate residential and commercial investment along a highly accessible major arterial, just like Seagull Boulevard. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Questions? Start with Ms. Deleuze.
Scott, just 2 questions. Did they already have potential commercial tenants for their spaces? Are they building to particular use, or are they going to advertise
They're gearing towards retail, but they don't have any specific tenants.
selected? Okay. And do you know if the owner has had conversations for the Fernside property? I'm just anticipating that there would probably be some concerns about the multifamily nature of the building adjacent to 2-story existing homes.
Well, for this property, it would be located just across from R5 where there are existing multifamily dwellings. They've also received a letter of endorsement from a local civic, the Deerfield Area Association, where they have endorsed their proposal for both residential and retail use. The community is
Knows about
ripe
it.
for retail opportunities.
Thank you.
Any other questions to Scott? Mr. Cirillo.
Just a quick question, just to clarify, on the Beach 13th Street site,
Yes.
the C13, the addition of the C13 overlay, is that just there, or is it sort of an extension from, is there one sitting now on the R4A?
There isn't. Here, it would be more of an extension of the existing C13.
Okay, so on the Fern side.
On this is the Burn side. On the
On the
Beach
Burn
13, it would be a new commercial overlay.
So, and then on Beach, it's just being laid
On top of
On
an
the-
existing R5 residential district.
in
No,
that, only in that block area?
on that entire tax block, yes.
Okay, and what's happening then to the west? I'll call it west, it's not really the west, but on the chart that you showed us. that-
Pull up the aerial map here, this section. So we have
This,
the Fernside property here. Over here is the Beach 13 property.
Yes.
Currently, there is no commercial overlays located here.
Right.
And there is no commercial opportunities for the neighborhood. In between, there are commercial uses. It's not zoned with commercial overlays, but there are
got it,
some local commercial activity here.
okay, thank you.
Ms. Efron.
What's over on the Nassau County line?
Right
Are
here?
there commercial opportunities there, or is there some thought that there would be use of the people in Nassau County over there in
I think
using the commercial
the
side?
Nassau County Expressway presents a type of
Area.
barrier between
Thank
the
you.
communities.
Any other questions, Scott? Hearing none, both of these are certified. Thanks, Scott.
Please now turn to page 194 for item number 5, for certification a zoning map amendment to establish a C2-3 overlay on an existing R38 district to facilitate a 1-story retail building along Merrick Boulevard. Our presenter is Deborah Carney, Deputy Director of the Queen's Office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is a proposed zoning map change from an R3A to an R3A with a C23 commercial overlay to facilitate the development of a 1-story commercial retail building. The project area is located on Merrick Boulevard, which is a major thoroughfare for southeast Queens, connecting it with downtown Jamaica and Nassau County. The property is located along Merrick Boulevard. A portion of it's within the R5D with the C23 commercial overlay. And you can see it, I think, a little more clearer here, where the property is located on 126th Avenue and Merrick Boulevard. The applicant's property is actually a parcel consisting of 2 lots and a portion of another. The portion that, the project area is actually a portion of the the parcel, but the rezoning area is the portion that is behind the R5D within the R3A zoning district that has no commercial overlay. The surrounding area is primarily 1- and 2-family homes. Merrick Boulevard consists of retail and services. The purple that you see up here is a storage facility. This is a closer look at the property. This is Lot 12, the portion of the property that today is in an R3A district, limiting development to 1- and 2-family residential uses. The other portion of the property within the R5D is currently vacant. It consists of 1 lot and a portion of Lot 1 here. This outlying portion here is already developed with a 1-story eating and drinking establishment and is not part of this project. This is a existing and proposed side-by-side zoning diagram. You can see within the existing diagram, there is no commercial overlay within the R3A district. Within the proposed, there is a commercial overlay within the R3A district, permitting the commercial use proposed by the applicant. These are just some photos of the site. The white fence that you see is pretty much the applicant's property along 126th Avenue. This is the existing eating and drinking establishment. It's pretty much a bar at the corner of 126th and Merrick Boulevard. This is another shot showing 126th Avenue looking towards Merrick Boulevard. Again, this is the applicant's property. These are some of the abutting residences, and this is the building across the street. And then finally, these are Merrick Boulevard photographs showing the applicant's property. It is vacant. And just to the north, there is a auto repair shop. And then, of course, showing Merrick Boulevard, a wide street. This is showing the site plan, showing the applicant's proposal to develop a 1-story commercial use with primary entrances along Merrick Boulevard, and there's an emergency entrance along 126th Avenue. The applicant intends to waive the parking, and zoning permits that as long as, in this case, the required parking falls under 25. And there are 23 parking spaces required here. And then finally, these are the elevations, showing the elevation for this development at 16 feet, which is similar to the context of the area, which is primarily 1- and 2-story buildings. And that's pretty much it.
Thank you, Debbie. Questions? Ms. Levin?
Debbie, do they have a intended tenant or a type of use?
Yeah, it's a dollar store.
So the tenant is committed to the project, or?
Yes, yes, apparently there's a contract.
Thank you.
Compelling use. Any other questions for Ms. Carney? If not, certified. Thank you.
Item number 6, page 269, for certification, a site selection and acquisition to lease approximately 44,000 square feet of property in Maspeth, Queens, for use as a storage lot for NYPD vehicles. Please welcome our presenter, Alexis Wheeler, from the Queens office, giving her first presentation to the CPC.
And I should have said that Hannah Marcus is also giving her first presentation to the CPC.
Well, good afternoon, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be standing here before you all for the first time. So as stated, this is an application brought to us by the NYPD in partnership with DCAS, seeking a site selection and acquisition on a parcel consisting of 2 tax lots located in the CB2 area of Mazpak. So just to be establishing the area, it's adjacent to the Mount Zion Cemetery and the Long Island Expressway. And just to be moving a little bit further in, here we have the expressway, and here we have the outline of the site. And so they are 2 contiguous tax lots that are approximately 44,000 square feet that have been under a long-term lease agreement for the continued storage of various police department vehicles. And the current owner right now is the Elmweir Cemetery Association. And so they've been licensing the lots since 2011 and 2013. These are blocks 2, 6, 5, 6, lots 75 and 80. The area is currently zoned M11. And of course, there are no plans for rezoning this site. And the use as a storage lot is permitted as of right. And so respectively, we have lot 75 and lot 80. And currently, they're using lot 75 as storage for salvage and auction, and lot 80 as a repair storage facility. Here's the land use map. And just to show some context too, number 1 here, which is circled, is their main central repair facility serving this area, and they fall within a half mile. And so this is actually a site that they very much need for this continued use. All of the bounding streets for this site are part of the truck route, as this falls within the Mazpak IBZ. And just to zoom in again, approximately here. The neighboring uses here, there are currently 2 curb cuts, 15-foot curb cuts, which will remain in use. And so the gate openings occur at each of these curb cuts. And to go through some of the images, the current adjacent uses, here looking back into the site, are all warehousing and auto body uses. And then on the opposite end of the block, we have a refueling station. So you can see that currently it is a fenced-in site, and this is one of the gate openings. And looking up the block, you can see the cemetery across the street. This is the auto body shop that is directly east of the site, and this is one of the warehousing facilities directly west of the site. This is the refueling station that's on the opposite end of the block, and as well as one of the warehouses that also bounds the block. This is the site.
Questions? Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis. Would you happen to know why it's taken so long to negotiate a lease for these 2 parcels?
So we did anticipate this question, and we tried to investigate this a little bit, and it honestly seems like it kind of slipped through the cracks. It wasn't necessarily seen as a priority project until recently NYPD inherited the fleet maintenance of DEP and DOT as well, as in addition to their already over 10,000 fleet vehicles, and so that sort of brought up again the need, and so that's why this became then prioritized as a site acquisition and selection.
Do you know the proposed length of the lease?
I do not know that offhand, but that's certainly something that I can look into.
Thank you.
Ms. Efron.
Thank you for your presentation. I would hope when this comes back to us that there will be somebody from the Mazpak IBZ or EDC or SBS who can talk about the vacancy rate within the Mazpak IBZ and how many other city uses occupy how many square feet. Not to detract from the importance of the police use, but it would be good to get an idea of what the trends are within that IBZ.
Certainly.
Probably better than the cemetery.
I'm just hoping the cemetery comes to testify.
Gordon Avenue is
That
a
day may
lively
arise.
spot.
Any other questions for Alexis? Hearing none, this is certified, Alexis.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Item number 7, page 288. This is a post-referral of a modification for a previously approved special permit to facilitate construction of a wastewater recycling facility at Building 1 of the Hallett's Point LSGD and related modification to landscaping. Deborah Carney, Deputy Director, Queen's Office, will present.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an item that's back from a Community Board referral concerning the modification of a previously approved special permit to facilitate the development of a large-scale general development known as Hallett's Point. Just to summarize, this is a property that, this large scale consists of NYCHA property, it's approximately 27 acres, and then 7 acres of privately owned land along the East River in Astoria. It concerned 3 sites, sites 1, 6, and 7. Site 1 is the modification that was requested is an extension of the ground floor to accommodate a water recycling facility. And for 6 and 7, the modification was about the transfer of floor area from buildings 7 to 6 and the redistribution of floor area within building number 6 in order to provide the required 337 affordable units there and some retail on the ground floor. This is a rendering of Building 1, and you can see in the corner the facility, the water recycling facility from the First Street view. At the time of when this came to the review session in April 25, the Commission had some concerns about the changes, about the proposed modification for Building 1 concerning the water recycling plant, which was to be constructed where a pedestrian access way was previously originally approved. There were questions about why this was a better plan, questions about whether there were fumes or noise issues with this proposed development. There was also a question about the reduction in the square footage between the proposed supermarket of 25,359 square feet to 21,733 square feet, and there was a request for renderings. So the applicant has sent, in the meantime, 2 memorandums, which you received in your packages, and just this morning, we received further details on the street tree planting that is proposed on First Street. And this is First Street. This was received, unfortunately, before we had the seating plan, but you can see the water recycling facility that's recessed and proposed plantings on First Street. And this is the look from Second Street, where the applicant intended for that water recycling facility to be an extension of the building itself. So this is a view where you see the water recycling facility and basically the service entrances for the residential and commercial uses. There's an emergency exit, and then this is pretty much the primary entrance for the fresh supermarket. The applicant laid out in the memo why they believe this is a better plan. They point out that the bus stop has been moved.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, there was actually another, but. They pointed out that the bus stop that was originally planned for Second Street had been moved to a more central location, 27th Avenue, a better point of access for the residents of NYCHA. They pointed out at the time that the original approvals were received. The floodwater maps had not been released yet. To comply, for the original plans to comply with the new flood regulations, they would have to have a series of steps and ramps that would pretty much occlude any hope of view between First and Second Streets. They also point out that they felt that this pedestrian access way would be very underutilized and pretty much an eyesore. There is a building, just a manufacturing building next door that they have no control over. This is not their property. They point out also that this would have been a bus layover on Second Street, on a narrow street. By moving the bus station and the bus layover over to 27th Avenue, it's moved over to a wide street and provides for a much better access to the fresh supermarket on Second Street. This also provides for better landscaping and seating, which we just saw that diagram where they can actually provide that on First Street. And overall, they feel that this is a better plan. The community board has recommended approval with some conditions. The first, that the buildings 6, 7, and 6 have recycling facilities similar to the facility that's being provided in Building 1. That is not possible. There is no room on those sites to provide those facilities. The other recommendation that they wanted related to the modification was that affordable units be provided earlier in the phasing. Currently, buildings 6 and 7, the development on those two sites will begin development in phases 2 and 3. It is a little earlier than was originally proposed. As for development, affordable units being provided along the waterfront, affordable units were proposed along for phase number 5. That, of course, depends on the 421A, and that continues to be an issue. So, here we are.
Thank you, Deborah. Questions? Ms. Levin?
Debbie, the additional materials they provided to us spoke with some specificity about the needs of supermarket tenants. Do they have a tenant on the hook?
They've approached several possibilities. Not yet. We do not have a defined tenant yet, but they.
Okay. Though I was
have-
gratified to see their materials do say we will be able to find a tenant. So
Yeah.
that's good to know.
They have a number of potential.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I will ask for a show of hands to approve the minor mod and send it on to the Buildings Department. Unanimous, with noting that Commissioner Cirillo is recused.
Okay. So let's move on to item number 8 for certification, a zoning map amendment to establish a C2-2 overlay on existing R4 and R4A districts to legalize existing non-conforming commercial uses on property located along 1614 Williamsbridge Road in the Bronx. Our presenter is Hannah Peters from the Bronx office. Page, number 8, page 340.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioners. All right, so the requested action is, like it was said, a proposed zoning map amendment to add a C22 commercial overlay on all 4 corners of the intersection of Williamsbridge Road and Pierce Avenue, in existing, it's both R4 and R4A districts in Bronx Community District 11. And overall, it would affect 13 properties. Just a little bit about the applicant. It's New York State Senator Jeffrey Klein. It's his law firm, as well as his other 2 partners in his law firm. It's been subject to a little bit of litigation with DOV because they're a commercial property operating in a residential district. And they have a stipulation with DOV that they will be able to continue operating until this is seen through,
I'm sorry, until when?
until the action is seen through. And the remaining 12 properties are not under the applicant's control. So just a little bit about the area, like I said before. It's the intersection of Williamsbridge and Pierce Avenue. It's Community District 11 in the East Bronx. It's the Morris Park neighborhood. Like I said before, the project area is split between an R4 and an R4A. The R4A area is, I'll show that on an upcoming slide, but the northern part of the intersection, and the R4 is the southern part of the intersection. It's surrounded mostly by other mixed uses, including residential districts, some of which have commercial overlays already, and some manufacturing as well. In terms of the area, like I said before, obviously it is all four corners right here of the intersection. It includes 13 tax parcels spread amongst these four corners. The main area thoroughfares are Williamsbridge Road, East Chester Road, East Tremont, and then Pelham Parkway South, which is about a mile north of the site. It's kind of spliced between the 5 and 6 lines. The 5 is a mile northwest of the site, and the 6 train is a little less than a mile southeast of the site, with the closest stop being Westchester Square, East Tremont Avenue on the 6 train. There's also several city buses that serve the surrounding area. The area itself has undergone a few major rezonings in the past decade, including the Morris Park rezoning in 2005, which rezoned part of the project area to R4A from R4, and as well as the Pelham Parkway Indian Village rezoning in 2006. There's also several large institutions around the project area, including the Einstein College of Medicine, which is a branch of Yeshiva, Mercy College, Bronx Psychiatric and Children's Psychiatric Center, Bronx Development Center, and then a branch of Montefiore. So looking at the actual zoning change itself, as previously mentioned, the proposed zoning map amendment is adding a C22 overlay to all four corners here. The project area affects both R4A, which is, like I said before, north of Pierce, and then the R4, which is south. There are 13 affected parcels in total, which are highlighted in yellow here, which is a grand total of just over 50,000 square feet, not including the applicant site. So 7 parcels already have a commercial or retail use on them. And so 2 of those 7 parcels, which are 15 and 16 down here, don't have certificates of occupancy for commercial use. So the C22 overlay would obviously permit these uses, and we have been kind of coordinating with DOB. So just some site photos. So the middle the middle photo here is just a photo of the applicant site itself. It's a 2-story law firm, and like I said before, it's a commercial use. In the back, it has 2 accessory parking spots. So photo 4 over here is facing the site, looking northeast from Williamsbridge Road. There's another commercial use here, and then the rest is residential. In photo 3, you can also see kind of the residential character on Pierce. And then photos 1 and 2 are photos at the intersection. So in the top photo in photo 1, you can see the commercial uses on the corner here, as well as some residential. And then in the bottom photo, you can see the commercial and mixed uses.
Thank you, Hannah. Questions? Ms. Levin?
Yes, Hannah, I'm kind of curious how this happened, because it looks as if the current owner acquired this
In 2005.
shortly before or, during the process of the rezoning. Was it residential use before then?
It was residential use, yeah.
So it was pretty clear at the time they purchased that this was not a commercial property, yet
Right.
they moved in with a commercial use.
Right.
How did that happen?
I can certainly look into that, but yeah, to the best of my knowledge, they were aware that it was a residential district, so.
Okay, well, maybe we'll find out from the community. There's the rezoning that was put in place in 2005 is
Right.
really consistent with a longstanding policy here to not allow the extension of commercial into residential side streets. So it's kind of odd to have to do one so quickly after a rezoning.
Yeah, I can certainly look into the history of that.
Well, maybe we'll hear from the community when it comes back for public review.
And just one thing, I would also add that in this area on Williamsbridge, and after we had went out and looked when we were approached, there are a number of existing commercial uses that
Thank you.
Just under half of them have commercial uses now, so.
The ones in the rezoning area?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get that. But they seem to have been, they were there when the rezoning was done. This one was not. Thank you.
Okay, certified.
Item number 9, page 359, for certification, a zoning map amendment to change C8-3 to R7D/C14, R7D and R8 districts, and zoning text amendment to establish an MIH district to facilitate a development containing affordable dwelling units and ground floor retail uses in Concourse Village West, Community District 4. Representative is Dana Driscoll from the Bronx office.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Our applicant, Upper Manhattan Development Corporation, seeking two approvals from the Commission. Amendment of zoning map, Section 6A, rezone a portion of Block 2458 from CA3 currently to variously R7D district, R7D with a C14 overlay, and an R8 district. And this would facilitate the development of 3 buildings, providing over 200 units of housing. And they're also looking for a text amendment that would designate the rezoned areas as mandatory inclusionary housing locations. This is a mixed-use area in the Concourse Village neighborhood of Community District 4. And mixed-use area in Concourse District, neighborhood of Community District 4. Its context outside of the graphic dimensions. It's in the middle of area of downtown Bronx, 161st Street corridor to the north, 149th Street corridor to the south, two of the most important districts in the borough. On 161st Street, from west to east, we have obviously Yankee Stadium. Coming east, the Borough Hall, the Court Complex. There's something called the Concourse Plaza strip mall. And further to the east, 161st Street stop on the Metro North rail line, commuter rail line. And 149th Street, again, from west to east, we have a new Gateway Mall on the north side of 149th Street. Coming up the hill, we have the CUNY Ostos College. Moving further east, Lincoln Hospital, and the 149th Street hub at 3rd Avenue on the east side of the street. The zoning in the area, primarily residential. Oh, I should also say this is the western portion of the proposed rezoning area is within the Grand Concourse Special Zoning District, which was approved in 1989, and its general purpose is to preserve the residential character of the concourse and to segregate and limit commercial encroachment into this boulevard, which has a strong residential character related to the Art Deco design elements in this portion of the borough. The area is accessible by mass transit at 149th Street, 3rd Avenue, approximately 3 or 4 blocks from the site. We have number 2, 4, and 5 on the IRT subway line. To the northwest, we have the 161st Street, the Yankee Stadium station for the B and the D subway lines. We have bus line number 19 running east-west along 149th Street. And we have number 1 and 2 buses along north-south along the Grand Concourse. Again, the zoning to the west, primarily R8, And to the east, R8, again, R7 as we get a little lower, and C83. Here, we're showing the surrounding area to the west of the site. We have, west of the site, we have Franz Siegel Park. To the east, we have a super block to the north, Concourse Village itself, which is a Mitchell-Lama co-op, 6 25-story towers. And to the south, we have Mott Haven Educational Campus, which has 6 public school institutions, 3 primary schools, 3 secondary schools that are on the site. Immediately to the south of the site, Cardinal Hayes High School, part of the Catholic Archdiocese. And to the north, we have a number of existing buildings characteristic of the Grand Concourse Special District, 6 to 8-story buildings. These are views around the development site. Upper right, we're looking at one of the development sites, this is Lot 13. This is a view from Concourse Village West at 156th Street. The upper right, we're looking at the opposite side. These are existing buildings on the rezoned block, but are not part of the rezoning area. These, again, are buildings characteristic of the Grand Concourse that will remain unchanged. To the lower left, we have a shot of the Mott Haven campus, and to the lower right, a view of one of the development sites, which are primarily developed as parking of the situation. To the right here, you see the 3 proposed development sites within the context of the rezone block. The proposed block, bounded by East 156th Street to the north, Concourse Village West to the east, the former East 153rd Street to the south, Concourse Village itself along the western border of the property. Again, these are the 3 proposed rezoning sites. One, 156th Street, that's Lot 13, 156th Street, Concourse Village West. A second in mid-block on Concourse Village West. And the third site on the Grand Concourse, approximately at 154th Street. These are renditions of the proposed, I should say, illustrative renditions of the proposed developments. Again, to the upper right, Lot 13, currently 6,890 square feet, used for parking with 150 parking spaces. Lot 49 to the lower right, 14,000 square foot lot, again used primarily for parking, capacity 150 parking spaces. And lot number 35, 15,600 square feet, which is used as existing use. Existing use here. To the upper right, existing laundry facility, and also for parking. The proposed rezonings would allow for the creation of 3 new buildings, mixed-use building on Lot 35, which is northeast corner, 156th and Concourse Village West. It will be an 8-story building with a basement and cellar. This building will also be the location of the C14 overlay. They will have 6,300 feet of commercial retail space. They will have 90 dwelling units in an 8-story building. The overall FAR will be 5.59. The maximum with the inclusionary housing element is 5.6. In addition, this building will have an outdoor recreation space, 4,400 square feet on a first-floor terrace. These are the proposed buildings. The yellow or the brighter yellow are the applicant-owned sites. This is Concourse Village West, East 156th Street. Next building, Concourse Village West. This will be a, here we have a 10-story building, mixed use, commercial and community facility. Intention here is for, possibly a daycare center. This will have 68,230 feet of residential space in floors 2 through 10, 70 dwelling units. The overall FAR will be 5.57, and there will be 18 parking spaces. It will be a 500-foot indoor recreation space and 5,700 square feet of outdoor recreation space on a second-floor terraced area. And the final building on the Grand Concourse interior lot, 49,572 square feet of residential floor area in a 14-story building. This building is within the Concourse Special District. It will be developed as an R8 building. There is a requirement for 8 parking spaces that may be waived. Overall FAR will be 7.19, the maximum 7.2 with the inclusionary housing element. As with the other buildings, this building will have a 430-foot indoor recreation space and 2,700 feet of outdoor recreation space in a terrace area for the building. I'd be pleased to take any questions.
Questions for Dana? Ms. Delausse.
Dana, how are you? Do you know if they've already secured the financing for the project?
I think they're still working with HPD and are in the process of finalizing the arrangements and which of the units will be in perpetuity, et cetera. So that is in process and not finalized.
Okay. And would you happen to know what the area median income is in the area?
I have it in my note package, and I'll share it with you before the end of the day. I'm
Thank you.
sorry, yes.
Any other questions? Hearing none. Certified.
Okay. Item number 10, page 376 for referral. An authorization and modification to the Montefiore large-scale community facility to construct a stairwell and elevator, facilitate the conversion of a hospital staff residence to offices. Our presenter is Chetan Horseman from the Bronx office. Item 10, page 376.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chairman Weisbrand. So the applicant, Montefiore Medical Center, is seeking authorization to permit floor area and lot coverage to be distributed without regard for lot lines within the Montefiore Medical Center large-scale community facility development, and a minor modification to modify the existing large-scale community facility site plan. The proposed actions would allow for the construction of a new stair and elevator at 3411 Wayne Avenue, thereby facilitating the conversion of the building from hospital staff dwelling uses to accessory office uses. The large scale is located in the Norwood neighborhood of the Bronx Community District 7. Open spaces in the area include the Williamsbridge Oval, Van Cortlandt Park, and Moshulu Parkway. The surrounding area primarily consists of hospital-related uses, though there's commercial uses in the area along Jerome Avenue to the west, Gun Hill Road to the north, and Bainbridge a little bit further south. Large residential buildings are also surrounding the area. The large scale is within R71 zoning district. The R71 zoning district permits mid-density residential up to a 4.0 FAR and community facility up to a 4.8 FAR. The R5A district located here, is mapped within part of the large scale and extends further south, including areas on along Bainbridge and East 210th Street. The R5A permits 1 and 2 family detached residences up to an FAR of 1.1 and community facility up to 2.0. The Montefiore Medical Center operates as a teaching hospital that is nationally recognized for clinical excellence, and Montefiore's residency program has grown to become the second largest in the country. The large scale, which covers an area of 7 blocks across approximately 17 acres and contains over 3 million square feet of floor area. The large scale was established by the City Planning Commission in 1964 and has been modified 20 times over the past 50 years to accommodate the changing needs of the medical center. The proposed project is located in parcel F, which is this parcel here, and would entail the enlargement of an existing 12-story building at 3411 Wayne Avenue in order to construct a stairwell and elevator for additional capacity and emergency egress, and associated with modifications for an adjacent parking lot. The existing building is presently occupied by a mix of staff dwelling units and hospital uses. The applicant is now converting all staff dwelling units to hospital uses following the conversion of the construction. Sorry, it's a little bit washed out, the print there. The enlargement would add, this is the enlargement area, this is the existing building. The enlargement would add 4,752 square feet of floor area and would increase the lot area by 410 square feet. The area of the building enlargement would be partially within a small portion of the 45-space parking lot. 2 spaces would be eliminated by the enlargement. In conjunction with the proposed project, the parking layout would be reconfigured, and 1 new stacker would be added to the parking lot. In total, there would be 15 stackers. They are located half on here and half here. There would be 15 stackers for 30 cars, which would maintain the existing parking capacity of 45 cars. This enlargement would increase the total floor area within the large scale by 0.16% and the total lot coverage by 0.08%. To facilitate the construction of the enlargement, the applicant is requesting an authorization to permit floor area and lot coverage to be distributed without regard for the lot lines, and a minor modification to the existing large-scale site plan. The R71 permits the 4.8 community facility FAR on parcel F. Through a previously approved modification, parcel F was approved to have a 5.16 FAR. The proposed enlargement will bring the total parcel F floor area to 5.22. Additionally, the 410 square foot increase in lot coverage would increase parcel F's lot coverage to 70.1%. The applicant will be transferring the 4,750, the floor area and the lot coverage from parcel C to parcel F. The transfer will allow parcel C to have a remaining 112,000 square feet of floor area and 8,667 square feet of lot coverage when the transfer is complete. Here is right here is where the elevator will go and the stairwell for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions? Mr. Cantor.
Thank you. How many square feet are left available to them?
Overall for Montefiore's large scale, I don't have the total number across the entire, so I can make sure to get that for you.
Any other questions? Okay, this will be referred to the Community Board, Bronx Community Board 7, for 45 days,
Okay.
and we shall see it upon its return.
All right.
Thank you.
Item number 11, page 400. This is a post-referral of an authorization and modification to a restrictive declaration to convert the 2nd through 5th floors of an existing commercial building from commercial use to residential use at property located on 7 East 19th Street. Our presenter is Sarah Elmore from the Manhattan office. We're on item 11, page 400.
Hey, good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod, Commissioners. This is an application by 7 East 19 LLC that is returning after Manhattan Community Board 5 review to convert the 2nd through 5th floors of an existing commercial building at 7 East 19th Street from commercial use to residential use by authorization pursuant to Section 1520B of the zoning resolution to waive the floor area preservation requirements of Section 1521. The applicant is simultaneously requesting chairperson approval for termination of an existing restrictive declaration that that was recorded against the site in connection to a prior chairperson certification granted in 1996. The site is located within the Flatiron District of Manhattan Community District 5 and the Landmarks Preservation Commission designated Ladies Mile Historic District. The site is situated on a 2,300 square foot interior lot located on the north side of East 19th Street between Broadway and Fifth Avenue. And it is right here. Right here. This site is developed with a 5-story building with approximately 10,943 square feet of zoning floor area, or 4.76 FAR, and rises to a height of 78 feet. The existing building is located in the Ladies Mile Historic District and contributes to its special architectural and historic character. Historically, the building was used for commercial use, but is currently vacant. On July 5th, 1996, the site was granted a chairperson certification pursuant to Section 1521 to convert floors 3, 4, and 5 to residential use from commercial use. A restrictive declaration was recorded against the site as a result, preserving the first and second floor or 4,350 square feet for conforming commercial uses. Construction to convert the floors 3 through 4 to residential has commenced. The applicant proposes to convert the 2nd through 5th floors of the existing building to residential use. The existing building will contain 2,300 zoning square feet of commercial floor area on the ground floor and 8,630 zoning square feet of residential floor area on floors 2 through 5, with 1 residential unit per floor. The 5th floor dwelling unit will be a double-level penthouse, which will include a enclosed rooftop recreation area. This enclosed rooftop recreation area is allowed as of right through a bulk transfer of the floor area from a mezzanine that will be demolished between the 1st and 2nd floor, and it's on the rear end of the building, and you can see that area is right here. The mezzanine that is to be demolished has 443 square feet of zoning floor area, and the rooftop recreation area will have 430 square feet of zoning floor area. So there will be an overall decrease of 13 square feet of zoning floor area from 10,943 zoning square feet to 10,930 zoning square feet. The Department of Buildings has issued a work permit for the floor area transfer, and LPC has reviewed and approved the rooftop recreation addition. LPC issued a certificate of appropriateness on December 1st, 2015 to recreate the missing masonry features on the front facade and to install storefront infill. Additionally, a Landmarks Preservation Commission restrictive declaration will be recorded against the site to bind the owner to perform continuing maintenance on the facade and exterior architectural elements of the existing building to maintain its historic character. The applicant 719 LLC is seeking an authorization pursuant to Section 1520B to modify the floor area preservation requirements of Section 1521 so that residential uses can be permitted on the 2nd through 5th floor of the existing building. Residential uses are not permitted as of right in an M15M zoning district, but may be permitted by chairperson certification pursuant to Section 1521, provided that at least a third of the building's floor area is preserved for manufacturing or commercial use. Section 1521 requires that 4,350 square feet of commercial floor area of the existing building be preserved. And in 1996, a chairperson certification was granted to preserve 4,350 square feet of commercial floor area on the 1st and 2nd floor. A restrictive declaration was recorded against the property in connection to the chairperson certification to serve as a legal commitment for the preservation. And this creates the as-of-right opportunity that the developer has to develop without the authorization. The requested authorization would permit a modification of the preservation requirements pursuant to Section 1521 to allow 2,300 square feet or 21% of commercial floor area on the ground floor and the conversion of floors 2 through 5 to residential use for 8,630 square feet of residential floor area. The proposed authorization will replace the previous mentioned certification granted in 1996. The proposed authorization to convert the 2nd through 5th floors of the existing building conflicts with the use restrictions in the restrictive declaration recorded against the property in connection to the 1996 chairperson certification. The existing declaration requires that the 1st and 2nd floors be preserved for commercial uses, so this declaration must be terminated. Since the existing declaration can only be terminated or modified with approval of the chairperson of the Planning Commission, the applicant is also seeking chairperson approval for the termination of the existing declaration in connection with this application. This application was referred out to Manhattan Community Board 5 on April 11th. At the full board meeting on May 12th, the community board voted to recommend approval of this application with 43 in favor, 0 opposed, and 1 abstaining. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Questions? Mr. Knuckles, followed by Ms. Efron.
Thank you. Sarah, what kinds of uses, commercial uses, would be permitted on the ground floor?
It could be like just your standard, it could be restaurants, it could be like just a small, it could be anything that's allowed within the M15M1, which I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a pretty wide range. It's just nothing heavy, like no community facilities, I don't believe.
Thank you.
Couldn't put a steam.
Yeah.
Or a coffee roaster.
Ms. Efron.
Hi, when this first came up, I expressed some concern that I wasn't sure what the vacancy rate was for small Class B or C office space in that neighborhood, but I do recall a study showing that this was the highest concentration of architects and engineers, smaller architects and smaller engineer offices in New York. That study was 10 years old. I hope somebody will speak to what the vacancy rate is. I worry that a series of actions that all, discrete actions that all seem to facilitate something as important as the renovation of this building might yield less space for the sort of heart and soul of New York City's economy in that neighborhood, which is service industries for the greater economic engine of New York, which at this point seems to be real estate development.
Any other questions or comments? This will be scheduled for a vote? Okay, thank you, Sarah.
Right. Next item is item number 12, page 442, our first pre-hearing item.
No hearing?
Oh.
Oh, it's right, it's in adjournment, sorry.
A public hearing for a special permit to modify yard regulations to facilitate a one-story warehouse building at a property located at 2700 Stillwell Avenue. Our presenter is Carenza Wood from the Brooklyn office. Item number 12, page 442.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is an application back for pre-hearing on behalf of L&E Building Material for a special permit pursuant to Section 106-32C of the Special Coney Island Mixed-Use District. This will facilitate the development of a warehouse at 2700 Stillwell Avenue in Coney Island, Community District 13, Brooklyn. The proposed warehouse will contain approximately 4,000 square feet of commercial warehouse space for the wholesale and distribution of building materials. The special permit requested in this application will allow for modifications to the special district yard requirements. The area surrounding the proposed development is characterized by a mix of low-rise residential, commercial, and light industrial uses. The entire area is located in the Special Coney Island Mixed-Use District, which is bounded by Coney Island Creek to the north, Cropsey Avenue to the west, Neptune Avenue to the south, and Stillwell Avenue to the east. The block on which the proposed development is located is a mix of manufacturing and residential, with some commercial uses on Neptune Avenue. Directly north of the project site is a lot with a 2-story home, and to the south is a 2-story distribution warehouse. Predating MX districts, the Special Coney Island Mixed-Use District is an M12 zoning district that contains provisions to stabilize residential uses in the area in conjunction with modest growth of manufacturing and commercial uses. Manufacturing and commercial development is allowed on some lots on Neptune, Cropsey, and Stillwell Avenue, while residential is allowed as of right on most lots in the interior of the special district. As you can see, there are some lots in the special district that do not permit any development as of right. Major thoroughfares are Stillwell Avenue, Neptune Avenue, and Cropsey Avenue. The Belt Parkway is located to the north and is accessible by Cropsey Avenue. The Stillwell Avenue subway station is located 2 blocks south of the project site, and the area is also served by 3 bus lines within half a mile. The proposed development site is located at 2700 Stillwell Avenue, between the Coney Island Creek to the north and Neptune Avenue to the south. The site consists of Block 6997, Lot 69, and has a lot area of approximately 700 square feet and is currently vacant. The proposed development is a 1-story, 4,000 square foot building materials wholesale and distribution warehouse with a proposed FAR of 0.84. The building is located in Flood Zone A and will comply with Appendix G of the Building Code for flood-resistant construction,
including dry flood proofing to the flood-resistant construction elevation, which is 5 feet above grade. The proposed building will have a 180-square-foot loading berth to accommodate one van or small truck that is accessed by a 12-foot curb cut. It is anticipated that trips to and from the proposed warehouse would typically move along Stillwell Avenue and a 100-foot wide street that crosses the Coney Island Creek and connects to the Belt Parkway. The warehouse will have approximately 3 employees who will arrive either by the Belt Parkway or by Stillwell Avenue subway station. Due to the special district regulations, a special permit is required to allow for an efficient floor plate for the warehouse. Section 10634 requires that when a side lot line of a zoning lot containing manufacturing or commercial uses coincides with the side or rear lot line of a zoning lot containing residential uses, an open area of at least 15 feet must be provided. And when a rear lot line of a zoning lot containing manufacturing or commercial uses coincides with the side or rear lot of a zoning lot with residential uses, an open area of at least 30 feet must be provided. The proposed development site shares a side lot line with a zoning lot that contains a residential use and is thus required to provide a side yard of at least 15 feet wide. The site also shares a 10-foot portion of the rear lot line with a zoning lot containing residential uses, and thus is required to provide a 30-foot open space for this portion of the lot. The applicant is seeking a waiver to modify this yard requirement. The proposed development does not provide the open area as is required, and this is in order to provide a more efficient floor plate. Today, there is approximately 14 feet between the proposed development and the residential building at the side lot line, and 23 feet between the development and the residential building at the rear lot line. In the special district, Section 10632 provides provisions to allow for uses that are not permitted, as well as for yard requirement modifications. In order to facilitate the development of the proposed project, the applicant is seeking a special permit pursuant to this section to modify the yard requirements in order to create a more efficient floor plate. A special permit may be granted if the following findings are met. 1, that the use comply with the regulations on performance standards of M1 districts, and 2, that additional truck traffic generated by the use or yard modification will not create congested, dangerous conditions. The proposed warehouse is a small facility that will comply with the M1 performance standards. The additional traffic generated by the yard modification is as such. The warehouse is anticipated to operate from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. It would receive bulk deliveries of construction and building materials by trucks approximately twice per week during the morning hours. It is anticipated that 25 customers in vans and pickup trucks will arrive at the site daily and will largely load materials from within the building. There's also on-street parking as needed. Customers will arrive and depart using Stillwell Avenue and a 100-foot wide street. The local narrow streets of the mixed-use district would not be used in relation to the proposed action. Overall, the proposed development is consistent with the goals of the special Coney Island mixed-use district and will provide an active use on the underutilized site. Community Board 13 held a public hearing and voted to approve the application with guidance from the Community Board Land Use Committee. In May 2016, the Brooklyn Borough President submitted a recommendation to approve the application with no modifications. The Borough President stated that the special permit would allow a new business to realize a building lot coverage to allow for viable business operations, and that the proposed development would provide an appropriate active use on the underutilized lot. Further, the applicant provided a letter to the Borough President stating that the business would commit to incorporating sustainable design elements as appropriate and would use commercially reasonable efforts to pursue local hiring as advised by the Borough President. The applicant also provided a letter from the adjacent property owner stating that they have reviewed the plans and have no objection to the application. Thank you.
Thanks, Carenza. Any questions for Carenza? Do we expect anyone to show up for this public hearing?
It will just be the representative.
Any questions? Ms. Levin.
Prince, it's good that it went and got the letter from the adjoining landowner to the north, because that's the biggest waiver here. But I wonder also, did they reach out to the residential property owner in the rear?
I am not sure of that, but I will follow up.
Yeah, if they could let us know what contact they've had, or you can confirm, that'd be good. Thanks.
And Carenza, the 2 who were opposed, or the 4 who were abstaining at the community board, their concerns?
They were concerned with the building height. As you know, this is in the flood zone, and that allows to measure the building height from the flood-resistant construction elevation, which is 5 feet. So it does allow for a little extra height.
Thank you. Any other questions, Carenza? Okay, public hearing on Wednesday.
Great. Item number 13, page 469, Queens pre-hearing. the acquisition of a lease for 18,000 square feet of office space at 118-35 Queens Boulevard for the NYPD Queens South Traffic Division. Fred Lee from the Queens office will present. Item 13, page 469.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chairman Weisbrod. The New York Police Department proposes to acquire approximately 18,000 rentable square feet of office space at 118-35 Queens Boulevard. This space is needed so that the NYPD can relocate from inadequate space on Hillside Avenue. The current location is overcrowded and has an inefficient layout. 118-35 Queens Boulevard is a 17-story building located on Queens Boulevard. The 335,000 square foot commercial structure was built in 1981 and provides outstanding highway and mass transit access with the E and F trains at the building's front door. Queens South Enforcement provides local enforcement and intersection coverage throughout the 8 precincts of the Patrol Borough of Queens, as well as 12 Queens community boards. The Central Queens office location proposed makes the site convenient to the entire enforcement area. Headcount for the unit is presently 183, and this might be expanded to 210. Staff is made up of mostly traffic enforcement agents and supervisors. As part of the proposed lease, the NYPD will also get adequate parking for department vehicles. There will be 43 interior parking spaces and in the building's garage and 2 exterior spaces. The surrounding area is characterized by medium-density residential development and office buildings. Queensboro Hall is located across from the site at Union Turnpike. Most of the buildings on Queens Boulevard have ground floor retail. Tenants at 118-35 Queens Boulevard include several law firms, Plaza College, Polish Airlines, a realty and real estate development companies, an insurance company, 2 newspaper offices, and have the facilities for the Board of Election and citywide administrative services for their computer testing are also in this building. They were subject to 2 DCP applications in 2014. Are there any questions?
Ms. Knight?
Oh, I'm sorry.
How much space is the NYPD moving from on Hillside?
I'm not sure. I could find that out.
Cass will be here on Wednesday, too.
Any other questions? Okay, public hearing Wednesday.
Okay. Item number 14, page 484, for public hearing, the acquisition of a lease for 45,000 square feet of office space at 260 East 161st Street for the Law Department Tort Division and Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. A presenter is Dana Driscoll. Driscoll.
That's fine. Good afternoon, Commissioners. DCAS is assisting the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner and the Tort Division of the Law Department in identifying space in the Bronx for the expansion or continuance of their operations. The proposal require all of the 3rd and 4th floor at 260 East 161st Street, known as the Central Building, north the east corner of 161st Street and Morris Avenue. Approximately 45,000 square feet of space, majority of which will go to the Law Department. The area, again, is east. We talked earlier about Concourse Village West. This is Concourse Village East, extension of Morris Avenue. This is a mixed-use area outside of the sort of government center area in the Bronx. Again, to the east, we have a Metro North station at 161st Street, Park Avenue. Further to the east, we have the former Melrose Commons urban renewal area. To the north, landmarks include Bronx Museum on 165th Street, and the Executive Tower, one of the first tower and park developments that was done, I think, late 60s in the Bronx. Again, there is one lease. There'll be no parking as a part of this lease, one lease for the two agencies. There was a separate fair share analysis done for each of the individual agency requests. The primary factor in the site selection, the proximity of this location to the court complex, including the family court, civil court, and the criminal court, all of which are key to the operation of these agencies. The Office of the Chief Medical Examiner will get approximately 4,500 square feet of this space. They are going into a new operational model. Formerly, the cadavers were stored in the Bronx and analyzed with the crime scene investigator, et cetera. That operation is now being moved to Queens and Bronx. In its place, they will have a more compact, quote-unquote, Bronx Family Services Center. Identifications of bodies will be made by way of digital photographs as opposed to actual examination of the bodies. And the facility will also have services, grief counselors, and medical examiners, crime scene investigators as needed. The large majority of the space, all of floor 3, most of floor 4, will go to the tort division of the law department. This division represents the city government in cases relating to personal injury, property damage. They are expanding their operations. There's currently a law department facility at 198 East 161st Street. Medical examiner, DCAS's, their graphic abilities are expanding or evolving. We're here to the upper right. The X marks the spot. And to the right of this same super block is 198 East 161st Street, current location of the law department offices. This new space will facilitate an expansion of their operations. They will be hiring an additional 37 attorneys, 27 support staff, in addition to 20 existing staff members that will be relocated to this new site. Again, the primary locational requirement was proximity to the court complex. This will allow for convenient access, walking access, 2 to 3 courts in the area, and its proximity to mass transit, including the Metro North, the 161st Street number 6 bus line, the Concourse B and D line is hoped and expected to make the availability of witnesses for conferences or hearings. It would increase the possibility that they would be showing up. And this is on for hearing on Wednesday. That's,
Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana. Doesn't this building, isn't it entirely tenanted by city agencies?
not entirely. Largely, there is law department, office of the chief, existing private tenants. They are primarily public sector tenants, that's correct.
What percentage, do you know?
I don't have a percentage. The Bronx District Attorney has space, ACS has space, Legal Aid Society, which is a private entity, they also have space located in the building.
Could you try to find out in time for the hearing what the
certainly
percentage of
Yes.
Yeah.
city agency tenancy is?
I think it would be a good, Dana, if you could ask DCAS to provide a stacking plan here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And I have a question. I mean, this came up, and I assume DCAS will respond to this as well, which is,
Yes.
this came up when the Tort Division in Manhattan moved to the Woolworth Building. This is roughly 40,000 square feet of space
Right.
for 80 people.
We've notified them to speak to that issue at the public hearing on Wednesday.
They're in the audience too, so.
Where are they?
I just want them to be well prepared.
Yes. So
for-
they are expecting to respond to this question and the stacking request for Wednesday's hearing.
Thank you. Mr. Cirillo.
I guess I want to pose a question, and I know I'll have the opportunity, I'm sure, on Wednesday, but I'm sort of looking at, this is the portion of the application that relates to the relocation of the medical examiner's function
Yes, sir.
from the Bronx to Manhattan and Queens. And I know this is a weird sort of discussion to have, but it actually could be quite important for families who need to access the office of the medical examiner, which no one, you hope no one ever has to do, but we know that that's not a reality. And I recall a situation that I was involved in back in the 90s where the Richmond County morgue burned to the ground, obviously in a fire. And for quite a long time, and after a very long battle in getting the capital funds to rebuild the morgue, Staten Island families were put in a position to have to go to Brooklyn at that time to deal with the issues that families have to deal with. So I'm reminded in a somewhat, dramatic way, because when you think of why families need to go here, and in fact, even in the description of the services and the alternative ways for people to identify their loved ones will be through photographs and whatever technology will be available into the future. It just seems to be something wrong. I'll be honest. It just seems to be something wrong about that.
You think it's appropriate to review the bodies in place as opposed to by
Yes, I
photograph?
think families, first of all, I think the boroughs should have locations for this so that families are not in the middle of having to deal with all the other issues they have to deal with going elsewhere. Again, we're one city. I'm not suggesting that those boundaries are that rigid. But at the same time, I do believe that there are certain things that families should have the opportunities to do closer to home in the midst of everything else they're dealing with. I realize this is not our application, but we're here to comment on it. And I guess the underlying question, which we'll deal with on Wednesday, unless of course you know the answer, is how does a decision like this get made that it's okay to, for the most part, deny a borough this service, which is not replicated anywhere else? It's not like it's one neighborhood, you go to the other neighborhood, or you just take an extra train or a bus or a cab. This is literally having to go to another borough. And two, I guess it's related, which is what kind of an assessment discussion, is there input? I mean, the people who are served here are not, people don't just come out to talk about these things. So it's not like you're going to have a hearing where the public's going to come out and have an opinion about something they don't even want to imagine ever having to deal with. So it's just really, there's a question in there, and there's sort of an expression of.
Essentially, you wanted to speak to the policy development.
Yes.
Whereby there wouldn't be physical
Yes,
identification
and what
of
the
remains.
who determined what the benefits were in dealing with this?
Well, I think it would be helpful if it's possible for Wednesday. I mean, DCAS has charge is finding appropriate space. How that space is, the policy that you're addressing is really the responsibility of the user of that space, in this case, the chief medical examiner. And it would be helpful if a representative from the chief medical examiner's office could be here to respond to that.
Thank you, thank you.
Ms. Delausse.
I had a similar reaction to Commissioner Cerullo, and I guess my question really had to do with whether or not the identification through digital photos has already been in place, and if so, for how long, and what has been the reaction of families to that process. It kind of goes along with the same kind of question. Thanks.
But I do think, and I know DCAS is in the audience, I don't know if the chief medical examiner's office is here, but it would be certainly helpful to have
We
someone
will make sure we get a representative.
respond to those questions. And I guess the related question to in a sense, to me, the disconnect of having a place to go to make an identification and yet having with no body there and no cadaver there and having grief counselors at that location. It's sort of a...
I hear you.
Okay, public hearing on, I'm sorry, Ms. Levin.
I'm sorry.
Well, and just as a detail to these much more important questions, where are the other facilities in Manhattan and Queens, and what different, it sounds like the functions are proposed to be split up to several places. What's going where? And where precisely are those locations?
We'll have that on Wednesday.
Any other questions for Dana? Yes, Mr.
Where are the remains of 9/11 going?
Where are they going? I believe
Would they be moving them up to this facility?
the 9/11 remains?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
I know they're mostly ash.
They are where they are. I think they are where they're going to be.
Yeah.
The 9/11?
Yeah.
I
The
do not believe that
the
they've ever been
unidentified-
moved here, and
unidentified.
as far as I know, to the extent that there are remains, they are in Manhattan at the CME.
It's my understanding that, again, kind of off the topic, but there were modest recovery of remains, if you remember the tragedy, and those that were identified, I believe, have been released to their respective families for burial.
But there are still some, as I understand, I could be wrong.
I believe that they are all, I'll check that they were all in Manhattan at the chief medical examiner's office,
Yeah.
chief office, and of course, still very sadly in Fresh Kills, too. Any other questions for Dana? If not, public hearing on Wednesday, and
Thanks, Dana. Item number 15, page 491, Manhattan pre-hearing, the acquisition of a lease for 15,000 square feet of office space on the ground floor of 55 Chambers Street for the Department of Buildings Customer Service Units. Sarah Elmore from Manhattan office will present. Item 15, page 491.
welcome back, Sarah.
Thank you. This is an application by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, or DCAS, in partnership with the Department of Buildings, or DOB, to acquire approximately 15,000 square feet on the ground floor space at 55 Chambers Street, on Chambers Street between Broadway and Elk Street in Lower Manhattan, within Community District 1. The requested action will facilitate the expansion of DOB by relocating citywide DOB customer service units from 280 Broadway to 55 Chambers Street. With a focus on safety, service, and integrity, the Department of Buildings enforces the city's construction code, zoning resolution, and the New York State multiple dwelling law. DOB is working to transform its operations and facilities as part of the Mayor's Building 1 initiative. Further, the mayor has committed to restructure our physical locations and focusing on customer service. 55 Chambers Street is the eastern portion of the ground floor space of the city-owned building at 280 Broadway that DOB currently occupies and uses as its headquarters. The sub-basement, basement, first and second floors of 280 Broadway were disposed of to the Economic Development Corporation, or EDC, in 1996 to facilitate the renovation of the building, which was in a deteriorated state. The proposed office site is located within the Civic Center neighborhood of Lower Manhattan. The surrounding area's built form is characterized by mixed use and commercial buildings ranging in height from 2 to 44 stories, and the site is within a C6-4 zoning district. The site is just north of City Hall Park and the Special Lower Manhattan District. The proposed office site is just located within the Landmarks Preservation Commission designated African Burial Ground Historic District. The surrounding area is served by multiple subway lines that include the 2 and 3 at Park Place, the 1, 2, 3, A and C at Chambers Street, the R at City Hall, and the 4, 5, 6, J and Z at Brooklyn Bridge, City Hall, Chambers Street. Bus service is also available via the M5 and M22 for crosstown service on Chambers Street. The site has nearby access to arterial highways and major thoroughfares, as well as close proximity to the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges and the Brooklyn Battery and Holland tunnels. The proposed office space is located on the ground floor at 55 Chambers Street. The building is a landmark 7-story building known as the former Immigrant Industrial Savings Bank. 55 Chambers Street is the eastern portion of the ground floor space, right here. A city-owned building at 280 Broadway that DOB currently occupies and uses as its headquarters. The Department of Citywide Administrative Services manages 280 Broadway and has a tenant in 55 Chambers Street space under a long-term lease. DOB proposes to lease approximately 15,000 square feet of office space on the ground floor level for use as a customer service center and office space for DOB customer service units with approximately 100 staff members. DOB would relocate customer service units that occupy approximately 8,500 square feet on floors 3 through 7 of the building to the proposed ground floor location, making accessibility for the public more convenient and reducing vertical traffic within DOB's headquarters. The customer service units that are being relocated include the licensing, limited alteration application, administrative enforcement, and central inspection units, which support permit filings, plan submissions, licensee application processing, certification of violations, and annual inspection filings. The proposed ground floor space is ideal for these high-traffic customer service units, and the space is currently vacant and in good condition. As the space currently has a long-term tenant, DOB would sublease the space from DCAS's existing tenant. DOB plans to repurpose and reconfigure the vacated space at 280 Broadway for new staff funded by the Mayor's Building 1 initiative. The new staff will be in units including but not limited to technical affairs, strategic operation, risk management, and code development. A notice of intent to acquire office space was submitted by the Department of Citywide Administrative Services pursuant to Section 195 of the New York City Charter for use of property located at 55 Chambers Street. The requested action would facilitate the expansion of DOB by relocating citywide DOB customer service units from 280 Broadway to 55 Chambers Street. And members of the applicant team will be here at the public hearing on Wednesday, so DCAS and DOB will be here to answer any further questions.
Thanks, Sarah. Questions for Sarah? Hearing none. Sarah?
Item number 16, page 508, for public hearing, a zoning map amendment and a zoning text amendment to establish an MIH district and to facilitate the development of a mixed-use building in the Inwood Area Community District 12, Manhattan. Edwin Marshall from the Manhattan office will present. Item 16, page 508.
Good afternoon, Chairman Weisbrod. Good afternoon, Commissioners. The applicant seeks approval of zoning map and zoning text amendments to facilitate the construction of a new mixed-use building at 4650 Broadway. The project site is located in Inwood within Manhattan Community District 12. As certified, the applicant seeks to develop a 23-story mixed-use building. The building would have 335 mixed-income units. In order to achieve their overall development objective for this property, the applicant requests approval of a proposed zoning map amendment to rezone the project site from R7-2 with a commercial overlay to R9 with a full commercial overlay. The proposed C24 commercial overlay would cover the entire site. Additionally, the applicant seeks approval of a zoning text amendment pursuant to Section 23-154D3 that would map the proposed rezoning site as an MIH designated area. As proposed, the applicant would seek approval to have the site designated to provide 30% of the total residential floor area to remain permanently affordable for residents making an average of 80% AMI, which is about $62,000 a year. Since certification, the applicant has revised their proposal to address concerns regarding the project's height, mass, scale, and affordability that were raised during the public review process. 4560 Broadway, or 4650 Broadway, is located at the northeast corner of Broadway and Sherman Avenue. It's outlined in the yellow. It's located on a block that is typified by 5- and 6-story high lot coverage buildings. You can also see that the blocks that face the project site to the south also have 5- and 6-story high lot coverage buildings. This is another view of the site looking north. You can see the site again located at the northeast corner of Broadway and Sherman Avenue. The site is located directly east of Fort Tryon Park, which is a 67-acre city map park within which the cloisters are located. At certification, the commission had some concerns about why the applicant chose R9. So before we begin our conversation about the application, I thought it would be important just to briefly run through the existing built condition on neighboring blocks. Again, you can see the 5- to 6-story high lot coverage buildings with taller buildings located to the south. This is another view showing, again, looking north. You can see some of the taller Mitchell-Lama buildings, located to the south, and also Fort Tryon Park. This is the project site. Again, it's located at 4650 Broadway. It is a 2-story commercial building. It's used for parking as well as a location for a U-Haul rental establishment. The building has about 135,000 square feet of floor area. It's built to 2.88 FAR. And again, it's a mix of commercial parking and a U-Haul rental establishment is located there. These are some views of the existing built condition on the project site. We're looking at the Broadway frontage looking south. Again, we're looking on Sherman Avenue. You can see a portion of the frontage on Sherman at Broadway. And this is another view of that. And this is the last view. Again, this is an interesting view because you can see the difference in elevation between Fort Tryon Park, which is located to the right, and the project site, which is down below. There is an elevation difference of about 150 feet or more. And you can see the taller buildings in the distance. Again, they basically range between 21 and 22 stories. This is the last photo I'm going to show you. This shows the looking from Fort Tryon Park outward, and you can see the taller buildings again from the parking lot at Fort Tryon Park. The project site is currently zoned R72. R72, as the commission is aware, is a medium density district which allows residential and community facility uses. The R72 is mapped across the entire site. The site also has a commercial overlay mapped to a depth of 100 feet along its Sherman Avenue frontage. The applicant is seeking approval of the site to be rezoned to R9. R9 is a high-density residential district. It also allows community facility uses as well. The R9 allows a residential FAR of 7.52. However, under MIH, it does allow up to 8 residential FAR. There are no height limits, and a tower on base building form is permitted in R9 districts if the site is located at 2 wide streets. The applicant also seeks to extend the existing commercial overlay to cover the entire site. That would enable the entire ground floor footprint to be developed for local retail use. The proposed build program, you can see on the screen right here, in the image right here. Again, it's just a 23-story mixed-use building. It would have 335 residential units. It would have about 25,000 square feet of ground floor retail space, 15,000 square feet of community facility space, and also, since the applicant is seeking approval of the site to be designated as an MIH designated area, they're seeking approval to provide 30% of the residential area, floor area, to be made permanently affordable to families with an average of 80% AMI, which is about $62,000 a year for a family of 3. Again, this is the certified proposal. This is the building in axonometric and also the building in section. The building is a tower on base configuration. The base is 60 feet tall, 5 stories, above which a tower would be placed. The base would be 60 feet. Again, it would be an 18-story tower on top of that. This is the building in section. You can see the base right here rises to 60 feet, sets back 10 feet, and then rises to a height of 240 feet. Again, there would be 23 residential stories within the proposed building. This was referred out for public review on January 19th. Community Board 12 on March 22nd, 2016, by a vote of 26 in favor, none opposed, and 2 abstaining, adopted a recommendation to disapprove the proposed zoning map amendment from R72 with a partial commercial overlay to R9, and he also disapproved the proposed zoning text amendment to designate this area as an MIH designated area. The concerns were basically those of the proposed project's building's height, mass, and scale, and also there was a concern that the affordability didn't really go far enough to address the affordable housing needs within this community. The community board did, however, approve the extension of the commercial overlay because they thought that was an opportunity to enhance and provide more ground floor retail commercial opportunity in the neighborhood. Subsequent to the community board vote and the community board's 60-day public review process, the applicant met with the borough president's staff, and basically the borough president had the same concerns that the community board had regarding the project's proposed scale, height, and mass, as well as affordability. And in response to the concerns that were raised by the borough president, as well as the concerns raised by the community board, the applicant is revising the application, has revised the application, and in this matter. Rather than rezoning it from R72 to an R9, they're proposing to rezone it from an R72 to an R9A, R8X, which are 2 contextual zoning districts, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Also, the commercial overlay extension will remain as originally certified and proposed, and also they are seeking approval to use the deep affordability option, which is option 3, which would make affordable units affordable to families making $31,000 a year, an average of $31,000 a year, which is at 40% of AMI. Okay, so this is the proposed zoning. This is the zoning proposal right here. The applicant has revised their rezoning proposal and seeks to rezone the project site from R72, which is located right here, to an R9A, R8X. The R9A would be mapped to a depth of 100 feet from Broadway, and the rest of the zoning lot would be mapped R8X. Now, the R9A is a high-density contextual zoning district. It allows residential development up to 8.5 FAR. There is a height limit in the R9A. Buildings can have a maximum building height of 175 feet and a street wall height of 125 feet. The R8X is also a contextual zoning district. It also has a maximum building height of 175 feet. The street wall is a little lower. It's 105 feet. Again, this is a split zoning lot. However, you would have a maximum building height limit, and you also would have required street walls as well. The 175-foot height limit is lower, about 70 feet lower than what the applicant was seeking approval for with the 240-foot tall building on a tower on base. And also, in terms of FAR, talk about the proposed build program right here. The applicant, with this proposal, this revised proposal, would provide 355 units. As certified, they were providing 335 units or so it's about a 20-unit increase. The ground floor retail and the community facility space would remain the same. And in terms of affordability, the applicant is seeking approval to use the deep affordability option, which is option 3. This has to be used in companion with option 2 or option 1. The applicant is seeking to use this with option 2. That increases the ability to provide more affordable units in this project. This is an illustrative drawing of what the revised proposal would look like. You can see, again, to orient the commission, this is Broadway, this is Sherman Avenue. Along Broadway, a portion of the street wall would rise to 65 feet. About 71 linear feet of the Broadway street wall would rise to 65 feet. The remaining portion of the street wall would rise to 105 feet and would wrap around and continue to cover the entire site. The building would step back 10 feet and rise to a maximum height of 158 feet. This is the building in section. Again, the building would rise, the street wall would rise to 105 feet, as shown in this section, set back 10 feet, and then top out at 158 feet. This would be a 15-story building, which is 9 stories lower than the 24 stories or the 23 stories that they were proposing. The building would top out at 158 feet, which is lower than the 240 feet that they were proposing in their proposal as certified. The Manhattan Borough President issued conditional approval for this project. Again, this was after having conversation and discussion with the applicant. These are the conditions. I'm paraphrasing the conditions that are in her recommendation, but these are the conditions. One is that the R9 rezoning proposal is extinguished. As I said in my remarks, the applicant has revised the proposal, so we have an R9A, R8X, as opposed to the R9. And again, these are contextual districts that have mandatory street wall and height limits. That the revised application is sent to Community Board 12 prior to the Commission's public hearing. That has been done. They have been messengered to the Community Board, as well as an electronic copy has been emailed to the Community Board today. The third is that the resulting project will provide 40% affordable housing. This is the option 3, deep affordable housing option that is a component of this revised application. And lastly, that the C24 commercial overlay result in the creation of small retail spaces. The applicant is continually working on a way to provide these small spaces and is open to the possibility of the retail space having small retail spaces. That concludes my presentation. I'll take your questions and comments.
Starting with Mr. Knuckles.
Thank you. Thank you, Edwin. My first question is, why the split site, since both zoning classifications have a height limit of 175 feet? I was just wondering, why is the site being split into 2 zoning classifications?
We figured that the lower density in the mid-block made sense from a planning perspective. I mean, the density in the R8X is 7.2 FAR.
Mhm.
The density for the R9A is 8.5. That's the maximum FAR. So there's an opportunity to have the building graduate in terms of density. Also, under the quality housing option, you know, in the R72 district, you can have a fairly high FAR here. You know, but, you know, in some, basically, it just made sense to have the lower FAR along Sherman Avenue, to have the lower district there.
Okay. There's also, in our information, it indicates that the developer is going to make an effort to have the building attain 50% affordability over and above the deep affordability option. How would that, what would that look like in terms of income stratification? I mean, how would that work?
I would defer to the applicant on that, on Wednesday. But what I can tell you, that since the option 3 has to work with either option 1 or option 2, and they've selected option 2,
Mhm.
you have 30% affordable with option 2.
Right.
You have 20% affordable with option 3. So that's 50% there.
Okay.
Ms. Deluz.
So just following up on that point, which I obviously think is a step in the right direction, I'm just wondering, is that why the total number of residential units went up? So I'm assuming that the number of studios and 1 bedrooms increased from the original proposal to the revised proposal? Is that accurate?
We think that's part of it, but the applicant has told us that since certification, HPD has been looking at room sizes.
They have.
Yeah, so so the increase in units may be a result of that exercise as well.
Will they, do you know if on Wednesday they'll be prepared to speak to the number of units that are studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, or 3 bedrooms in the revised proposal?
The applicant will be prepared to speak to any question that the commission may raise. The representative of the applicant is here, and we've been vetting with the applicant the types of issues and questions that will come up at the public hearing on Wednesday.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Cantor?
Thank you. Edwin, is the 40% of the, huh?
Of AMI.
Yeah. 40% affordable housing. Is the 40% of the affordable housing based upon the gross residential area?
Yes,
The new gross residential area?
Right.
it's my understanding, yes.
Well, just to be clear, the 40% option is that 20% of the floor area would be at 40% of the AMI.
Okay. But the 20% of the floor area is of the new gross floor area.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Levitt?
Yes, Edwin, I think this certainly represents a step in the right direction, but I have a question about sort of taking us from what's as of right to what was proposed, well, what's as of right to what is now currently proposed with the revised proposal. The revised proposal involves building heights of 175 feet in both zoning designations. Under the current zoning, the current R72 zoning, my question is, how tall could a building be? I guess it's governed by height factor.
It's governed by height factor. In the R72 district, typically you can have a 14 to 16-story building that's set back from the street. However, if you have a large enough site, and this is a fairly large site, you can achieve a fairly tall building here in the R72.
Right. There was a proposal some time back, one that would have been as of right for a condo development at 17 stories. There was documentation in our packet about a mayoral override that was sought at the time. So it looks like under the current zoning, you could get to 17 stories depending on how you configured it.
That's true, and this is a fairly large site. I mean, the site is 47,000 feet.
Right. So why is it that in the original application for the reasonable worst-case development scenario under the existing zoning, they chose to model a building that was only 10 stories tall?
I'll leave that for the applicant to answer.
Okay. But it is the case that current zoning could allow a 17-story building.
Absolutely.
And,
Or taller.
or taller, depending on how you configured it on this large site. And that the revised proposal would limit the height to about 17 stories, depending on how they configured the floor-to-ceiling height.
That's right, and it also requires street wall.
So we're about matching the current height limit.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we've solved the height concerns that were reflected in the community. We've solved, or at least addressed the affordability concerns, but we're still allowing the developer the density that essentially the density they sought in their original application.
Yeah, there's virtually little difference between what they sought originally and what's there.
Okay, but height and affordability, big progress. Good. Thank you. Oh, could we get it, are they going to be able to bring us a site plan?
Yes.
I realize that this has been done pretty quickly, but it would be useful to see where the floor area is located on the site.
And we'll try to get you by Wednesday also an explanation on the reasonable worst case. Any other questions for Edwin? Bring your lunch on Wednesday.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, do you want to, it's going to be a 15-minute team presentation?
Yeah, thank you, Hannah. Yes, the applicant will, we expect the applicant will make, as we usually do in these kinds of complex situations, a 15-minute presentation, and we'll alternate between those in favor and those opposed, and until we're exhausted.
Okay. So in addition to the hearing on Wednesday, May 25th, staff have prepared favorable resolutions for the following items. For 19-25 Kent Avenue, Alex Sommer from the Brooklyn office is available for questions about the report. Prepared for approval with modifications. This project is for a proposed zoning text amendment to create a new special permit and proposal for 2 special permits pursuant to this new text amendment to facilitate the construction of a mixed-use development.
So, any questions for Alex or the Brooklyn team? No.
No? Okay.
I see none, so just,
Okay,
thank
so-
you.
Next, there's 2 office spaces, both in Queens. We have 36-36 33rd Street for office space for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. There's favorable reports, too. Okay. 1 Court Square office space, also for the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. We also have the 255-23 58th Avenue, which is the authorization to allow side-by-side dwelling units in a detached 2-family house that appears like 1-family house. Okay. Also for Wednesday is 704 Ocean Terrace, which involves a certification that no authorization is required in the Special Natural Area District of Staten Island to facilitate the construction of a residential development. Okay. Great. Assuming there are no concerns about the above, let's move on to June 8th. We have the Park Slope Historic District Extension 2, which is the second extension of the Park Slope Historic District. Jonah Rogoff from the Brooklyn office is here to answer any questions concerning the letters you received over the weekend from Kramer Levin and a letter of response provided by Landmarks Preservation Commission Director of Intergovernmental Affairs, Lauren George. So Jonah's here to talk with you.
Ms. Levin?
Yeah, I guess I have a question about, 184 Sterling Place request that we got. Our purview here is pretty limited. We're not really supposed to be addressing issues like this, so I guess I'd like your confirmation, the chair's confirmation, that it doesn't really fit within what we're supposed to be doing. Is that right?
That's my understanding. The charter spells out the purview of the commission, and it's limited to conflicts with the zoning resolution, any proposed new development, or plans for redevelopment, renewal, and so forth.
So then I guess my follow-up question is whether this is the kind of issue that the city council could address when it gets there.
Yes. That's my understanding, that this is, the proper forum for this is the city council.
Yeah. Okay, well,
And let
I'm
me
pretty
just
pretty
confirm-
sympathetic to the argument. And I hope-
Council has disappeared, but,
Okay.
but the city council remains, and so I believe that that is the proper.
Yeah, no, I find their argument very compelling, and I hope they can get some relief from the city council.
Okay. Is that all for Jonah? Thanks, Jonah. Okay, so in addition, on June 8th, we have 8 landmark designations. Briefing materials were provided in your agendas. These landmark designations include, in Brooklyn, we have 2, the Greenwood Cemetery and Chapel, and designation of the Van Sicklen House. In Manhattan, we have the designation of 57 Sullivan Street House, and designation of St. Michael's Church and Parish House. Queens, we have designation of John, William, and Lydia Bell Ailes House, and designation of the Pepsi Cola sign. Staten Island, we have the designation of Vanderbilt.
Pepsi-Cola sign or the
Sign, yeah. In Staten Island, we have designation of the Vanderbilt Mausoleum. And also in the Bronx, we have designation of William H. Schofield House for landmark. And last, we have 3 office spaces for vote, which were presented to you earlier today. These will be the 260 East 161st Street office space, also 55 Chambers Street, and 118-35 Queens Boulevard for the NYPD.
Any questions about any of those? Certainly came as a surprise to me that the Greenwood Cemetery had not been landmarked before this, but.
It and the chapel, I guess.
Chapel.
The gate, right.
Right.
Mhm.
Anything else, Hannah?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman, Vice Rod.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Thank you. All opposed? None? See you all on Wednesday.